Good afternoon. This is Bob from BBD from his studios in Delhi. This is Sunday the 20th, and today's short and sharp news is not the one thing to report. China has just vanished from all the newspapers except for bits and bits here and there. Lots of other stuff obviously in play. But it was a report earlier that I wanted to mention. It was in the Economic Times yesterday. It says, Trump's wrong about TikTok. The West doesn't understand the scale of Beijing's ambitions. And it's an article titled, China's plans are much more sinister. And this is what the headline that should hit India the maximum, right? It says, this is no accident. President Xi Jinping has a dream, a Chinese dream of global dominance, and his strategy for achieving that has two main prongs. The first is the traditional and tangible hard power, push to set up military bases and seaports controlled by Chinese interests around the world. And it has been much discussed by China observers. And this is our V and Go and all that other stuff that keeps going on in our analysts' mind. And then you have a Chinese company now has a 99-year lease over a port of Darwin in northeast Australia next to an Australian naval base that hosts US Navy warships. Amazing, right? Djibouti, then everybody talks about Hambantota, then a port in Bangladesh and port in Burma. But the key, the real insidious thing is what he thinks is the other, is technology and digital in capturing of the mind space and the soft capturing of the mind spaces, which is what he's been trying to do through various other moves. As he says, take Mao, whom Xi reveres. The strategy Mao used to further his goal of a Marxist-Leninist world revolution in the 60s was the same he has used to vanquish his much stronger opponent, Chiang Kai-shek, during China's civil war from the late 1920s to 50s, win over the countryside in order to surround the cities. Xi is reaping the benefits today. The world's countryside has been won over, secured with physical choke points, and Xi is now bringing the fight to the metropolises, the West, by forward deploying China's virtual choke points. And this is the point for India to note. It is time to dare to draw the dazzling sword. He and his government have declared repeatedly. They have drawn the sword, and we need to retaliate in a group of democracies because all of us are threatened. Of course, we may just want to go there his way too, who knows, right? And as you can see, the sinister plan, the Hindustan Times, the Indian Express, everybody reported these characters. It says, arrested journalists with sharing border strategy with Chinese cops. The Delhi police on Saturday said journalist Rajiv Sharma, 61, arrested on charges of spying, had allegedly been passing on sensitive and classified information to Chinese intelligence agencies since 2016 and had been paid nearly 40 lakh through various channels. What a cheap guy. Just see what it takes to just kind of corrupt anybody in India, right? And most of these, obviously, these journalists have insight into, they ask questions and into the defense arena. They ask questions of ministers, of secretaries, and this is what they're reporting, right? And the arrested journalists, there's a Rajiv Sharma, obviously, then there's a Chinese national, Qing Shi, and there's a Nepalese national, Sher Singh. So Nepal is again in play. It's really funny, man. We gotta get our this particular KP Oli straightened out, and it's not going to happen if we continue pussyfooting along with our cultural tinted glasses. But what's happening in our neighborhood, which should be concerning us? Right after, obviously, we know that the canal, which was this big canal that was going to bring China right home to us in the Arabian Sea, right through the Thai Peninsula, we have, which we have not seen much of. We've not heard, it's not being reported extensively, but it's a big problem in Thailand, obviously. It says, Thai protesters hold rally for democratic norms. Thailand is also in some sort of a turmoil. It's been for a while, right? The other, obviously, after pulling out of Syria, we have again US sends more troops to Syria to counter Russia, because Russia continues its brazen game to try and take the Middle East away from the United States. Just when the United States is pulling out of there, pulling out of Afghanistan, who do you find trying to put their presence are obviously Russia and China. India has to be careful. Its alignment currently, I think, with Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Israel and Egypt are going to go a long way in garnering support for the Indian position. It should also, at the same time, I must mention, work overtime to ensure that Iraq does not fall into Iran's lap, which it looks like it's going there. But right, Iraq has been a real, they are the real cultural affinity and political affinity to India for years, and a lot of if you know, infrastructure companies have made money for years in Baghdad. Right? We need to recreate those relationships. We need to be part of that reconstruction, and we got to make sure that most of our oil comes from Iraq rather than Iran at this point in time. Right? Then I have a little note here, says Sharif considers a political comeback after a year-long gap. Fascinating. Is this an opportunity for India? After all, our PM did establish a personal connect with Nawaz Sharif. It may be just the time to help him dislodge Imran Khan, and why not? We talk about no interference in other people's affairs, but Pakistan's been doing that for years. It's time, maybe, for take another leap of faith as far as Nawaz Sharif is concerned. Right? He's let us down twice, but you know why? Under the bullying oversight of the army. Here, I think, like I said, if we hammer China militarily now, the domino effect on Pakistan would be far greater than what it will be on China. China itself will lose its preeminence or its desire to be this great country, which actually really it isn't, right? I mean, we keep talking about cultural, and we talk about the highways and Shanghai. No, to me, what's important, I think, as a citizen I'd rather be a free man. And at least relatively freer than what you find yourselves in China. However, having said that, I think the road to Pakistan, in my mind, leads through China and the defeat of China militarily. Out of the box, but to my mind, that's the way India needs to go, and it'll kill two birds with one stone. On the economic front, we need to keep watching out. There's a report in one of the newspapers. Sugar mills owe 15,683 crores to farmers across the country. Farmers are in a lot of trouble, folks. We got to be careful and watch out. Then you have, obviously what's happening in Japan. We got to be careful about. Suga in Japan saddle. India will need to tweak template. New PM may take more moderate approach to China. Well, sure he will, because I believe where he comes from is full of Chinese traders and so on and so forth. But I don't think he will change dramatically, because his cabinet ministers are a mix of both, and I think he is a closet Abe fellow. So I think India will have to work a lot harder, and drop this constant narrative that you get as that you can't trust Japan, you can't trust. Of course you can trust Japan. You just don't understand Japan. And the first thing to understand Japan is Japan and China culturally are like night and day. Please understand that. In Japan, word means a lot, almost your life. In China, word means nothing. Remember that. And as we look after our farmers, you have this onion and potato farmers are out, and then the tomato farmers will be out. I'm not sure, right? At this point of time, the government must understand that 67% of the consumer is the same farmer you're hitting. You really can't make policies for the 33% of the urban consumer. You really cannot, if you want this country to grow. Well, we got to really get better on this, right? And I'm glad that when we talk to South Korea, we're talking about India to seek lower tariffs for rice exports to South Korea. Will push for allowing pomegranates, eggplant imports, and shunning inspection of mango. Vegetables and fruits is the way to go. Rice and wheat may not be your most effective export, but your fruits and vegetables are most certainly are. Now let's see the other topic that's grabbing the headlines is the ruckus in both the houses of parliament on these three agricultural bills. Where do we stand on that, right? First, you have Harsimrat quits cabinet, says can't be party to anti-farmer laws. Now I must say this, yeah, they quit the cabinet, that's fine, but they're still playing their cards close to the chest, both sides of the game. They've not walked out of the alliance like the Shiv Sena did. Till she does that, you don't know which side she really is on. But is this bill so detrimental to the farmer? My view is that it's not. I think these bills, the abolishing of the APMC, were critical for the Indian farmer. This bogey that is being created of the large corporates is just a huge bogey. It's not going to come in and destroy the small farmer. It'll destroy the small farmer as much as the current APMC and the traders there seem to continue to do so anyway. Why are Punjab and Haryana up in arms? The reason is that the MSP essentially, which in my mind has absolutely led to misallocation of resources in all these years. It was critical earlier on when we were out with a begging bowl for grains, but now it's led to a situation where you got 61 million tons in the FCI, misallocation of resources, half your grains are rotting, right? Your requirement is only 20 million tons. Not only that, but between rice and wheat in both these states, rice is not really the crop of choice. It's only being grown because of the MSP. You have degradation of water tables, which is critical. On one side, you're fighting for the Bias, the Nangal canal. On the other side, maybe if you didn't grow rice, you probably didn't need the water, right? India has such a huge diversity of weather and soil patterns, and proper agricultural policies can actually ensure that the right kind of output is crops are grown at the place that they're probably the best to grow. Right? Haryana and Punjab, in my mind, should be focusing a lot on high value fruits and vegetables, and not so much on rice, because rice is not only depleting the water table, it's caused pollution in the water, it's creating all the havoc with the crop burning fires, and so it's a humongous cycle that this MSP system has made. It was necessary at that time. I think rethinking it is important, but the 3 points that TK Arun brings up is why are the farmers concerned and should be concerned, right? One is obviously it's a hit on the federal structure. You have the agriculture is a state subject, and there should have been extensive consultation before this came out. That's critical. The second most important part is that apparently any disputes now will be resolved by bureaucrats rather than the courts, and I think here there is again a huge problem, and I think the farmers are absolutely right about screaming and shouting about that. But in this whole process, I think the most important part is there's been a hit on the federal structure, and there should have been a lot more consultation. But in the end, I think MSP anyway needs to be readjusted, and I think it should move from crops that really are not suited for the region and has served the purpose post the huge famine that we had, and this is the way to go. But the way to do it was probably not the most sophisticated way that this government does, and it seems to do it with almost all its bills, right? But next week, folks, it's time to refocus in China. It's not gone away. Jai Hind.